The federal government has officially withdrawn treason charges against minors involved in the recent End Bad Governance protests across Nigeria. Now, this decision comes after widespread public outcry over the arraignment of 4 minors aged 14 to 17 who collapsed in court due to apparent malnutrition and illness. It will be recalled that 4 minors, who were among 76 persons the Nigeria Police Force NPF charged for participating in the protests, slumped before they could be arraigned before the court last Friday.
Now, owing to the development, the police delisted the 4 affected teenagers from the charge sheet, even as it proceeded to dock the other defendants, who the court subsequently granted very stringent bail conditions. President Bola Tinubu, who ordered the immediate withdrawal of the charge against the minors, has asked for an in-depth investigation into what led to the arrest and detention of the minors. Now, joining us to discuss this is the Executive Director, Sterling Law Center, Deji Ajari. Good morning, and thanks for joining us. Good morning, Mr. Ajari. Can you hear us?
Thanks for having me.
All right, great to have you join us. I probably would start with, just asking which detail of the whole conversation is most shocking for you. Is it the arrest? Is it the fact that they were in police custody for that long? Is it the fact that they fainted and some of them were collapsing in court? Is it the prosecution lawyer saying that these people are old enough to be arrested, that some of them are even married? Or is it the president ordering their release, out of nowhere? Which of them, is the most shocking detail of this story?
Well, really, is there anything that is really shocking about any of this? I think one has spent a reasonable time working within the justice system in Nigeria enough not to be shocked by any of this. It's not shocking, really, because we've seen quite even worse things happen. It's just worrisome. It's worrisome because really this is the reason people lose confidence in the justice system. We have a justice system that is intended, that is designed specifically for children. There is a child justice system. Children are not supposed to be first detained unless it is absolutely necessary, and in most cases for their own protection. This is what the Child Rights Act says. And beyond that, even the Constitution, even though it does not specifically make provision regarding the treatment of children, but it specifically also makes provision for the rights to dignity of the human persons. I mean, when you see these children, you have no doubt about how they have been treated. Imagine when they were brought to court, look how malnourished they were looking. They were. You would obviously know that they had obviously gone through even worse treatment while they were in detention. And what is worse is that they were detained alongside adult offenders, adult suspects, and some of whom are probably, hardened criminals. The entire system, gives you cause for worry. And even more worrisome is the fact that a judge of a federal high court, and I'm not talking about a lower court, a federal high court, would allow minors to be arraigned before him, something that should never happen because children ordinarily who are in conflict with the law should be treated in special courts designated specifically for children. And there are rules, there are guidelines for the treatment of such children. For instance, details of such minors' cases should not be made public. Their identities should not be made public, but all of this was thrown into the trash can. Even more worrisome, most worrisome, is the bail conditions that were given to these minors. It is clear that they were not intended to be released, because how do you, for God's sakes, ask that these people should provide shorties who are from level 15? Some of these children are street urchins. Most of them are people who probably, out of the bitterness of the fact that the system has failed to make provisions for their adequate protection, took to the streets. And now you're now asking them to meet impossible bail conditions. I think really from the prosecutors, from the police, from the prosecutors, from the judges and the entire court system, you would agree with me that yes, it is worrisome, but not shocking, certainly not shocking. But as to the president's order to discontinue the trial of these minors, That's also not shocking. Like I said, as soon as I heard that order, I said the president does not have the powers, of course, to direct the courts on what to do, but he could exercise his powers through the Attorney General of the Federation to discontinue the case. And I think that is exactly what has happened. What I now also find a little concerning is the statement of the vice president at the reception of these minors that the decision to release the minors was on compassionate grounds. I think the vice president was misled into thinking that it was merely out of compassion. It is the lawful thing to do. It is the thing they ought to do in line with the law. Failure to do so would have been an illegality. And I doubt if this government would want to go down as one that supports the illegality that mistreats and maltreats children. I doubt if they want to be in that corner.
And you really mentioned a number of things, talking about the fact that this is not a favor. It is the law that should be followed. Minors should not be tried in a federal high court. Now, if we're to investigate, like the president has given the order that this be investigated, who and who will, hold these people to account? Because right now, and who are the people that are culpable in this? So I'm assuming that the law enforcement agents will be investigated. Who is to hold them into account? Who is to carry out the investigation of these law enforcement agents? Is it fair for the police or, the police to investigate itself? Also, looking at the judge who gave this order, who will be the one to hold, or what body will hold him to account?
Thank you very much. I think there are processes already in place, mechanisms rather in place within the police force for the discipline of erring officers. And if the agencies would do their job, then the Police Service Commission should by now actually already have a report, or at least be expecting a report for those who arrested these minors and put them in detention facilities that are not appropriate. That's one. Two, for the prosecutors who went ahead to arraign these minors, because these are people who have been trained over and over again on the handling of minors who are in conflict with the law. So the Police Service Commission should be dealing with these two actors first. As regards the judge, and I think really that is something that is very important, because if, assuming prosecutors even brought the children, a judge who is well trained, who understands what the law is, would have immediately asked that those children should be taken to the appropriate place. But this judge did not only stand and allow these children to be arraigned and they took their plea, he also went ahead to grant bail conditions that are impossible. So I think the Judicial Service Commission should look into this. And until we start supporting every effort to make people accountable, including judicial officers, the truth of the matter is that we will continue to have anyhowness in our justice system. And I think this is a very good opportunity for the National Judicial Council to show that it supports every effort to make people accountable, including judicial officers. And if the National Judicial Council can take steps and impose some sanctions on the judge, you will find out that in future other judicial officers are likely to be more cautious when they are faced with similar situations.
All right. So there is the Nigerian police, the police force has guidelines on how to handle this, and the National Judicial Council should also look into this, the case of this judge. But let's also talk about the lawyer. And I know that according to our laws, everyone is entitled to defense, right? And the lawyers have their responsibility to take on cases. But the question is, where do we draw the line between certain cases that are flagrantly wrong morally and based on the law, and and how do we find that divide between lawyers knowing that this is outrightly wrong and I can't stand for this, and being able to follow the law? But I want us to take a look at this video. This is a video of the Prosecution Counsel when they were being asked what they thought regarding these minors who were charged to court.
All of them are adults. Most of them are married men. None of them is a minor. Some of them are university graduates. The small kids you are seeing here, they came with some of their parents to come and greet their loved ones. They are not even the real suspects standing trial in this case. These boys were arrested in Kaduna and Zaria. Imagine The level we find ourselves now, do you know how much it costs us to be at this level of a democracy in this country? These young boys are trying to destabilize Nigeria using the Russian flags and other countries, calling on the military to remove our president. Is it fair to even remove the state governors?
I'm sure that anyone who was watching that clip, including you, Mr. Jare, were probably stifling the laughter because you could see the reaction of the lawyers behind him. He sounded really ridiculous. So I think I come back to the question I was asking earlier. How do we find the divide? How do lawyers find the divide between knowing that this is flagrantly wrong, it's illegal, it's immoral, it's an abuse of court process, and, you know, understanding that as a lawyer, everybody is deserving of representation, even the government, or even law enforcement in this case?
Yeah, I think, well, of course, the man is a civil servant. Apparently, he's a police prosecutor. I'm not surprised at his speech. I'm not surprised at what he's saying. It is clearly either a case of knowledge gap or outrightly just being ridiculous. The truth of the matter is that whatever he is saying there is clearly untrue. And like you have said, there is nobody that is watching this video vis-a-vis the videos of the minors in courts that will really take whatever he's saying seriously. So really, for me, that's totally what I expect. Like I have said, is this: whoever this lawyer is can take instructions. Of course, if there are allegations that these children have come in conflict with the law, have done certain things that are inappropriate, have done certain things that, if done by adults, would amount to crimes, there are ways to treat them. There are specific places to take them to. There are specific guidelines for how they will be handled. So if I, as a lawyer, for instance, I am approached by my superiors or by the IG of police or whoever is in charge to take care to handle these children, I would advise appropriately. I would say, this is the appropriate court to take them to, this is the appropriate place to take them to, and this is how they should be handled. It is not as if the law does not make provision for how they should be handled, or the law specifically states that children can never be treated when they come in conflict with the law. No, it simply says they cannot be tried, at least not in regular courts. Certain words that are used when trials of adults are going on are not used when children are being tried. So, like I have said, if it is knowledge gap, or if it is just that he's just being funny, I think the Police Service Commission ought appropriately to take steps to, impose sanctions on such prosecutors. And like I have said, the essence is not just to punish, it is to ensure that in future, this person and other people in his shoes will act differently. They will do the appropriate thing. But clearly, whatever the prosecutor is saying in this video is nothing short of ridiculousness. It is nothing short of being comical, and I think nobody should take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, so a few people, like the lawyers behind, the prosecutor, they probably found that funny. It was hilarious to them, but, many people would argue that they are, as much as a disgrace as every other person who was a part of the story. And, it should be worrisome that we're seeing very glaringly people allegedly or seemingly jeopardizing the institutions, the judicial system in Nigeria for maybe political, maybe personal gain. It's not the first time.
The fact that those lawyers standing behind actually found whatever was going on funny, and they were laughing.
Yeah, and I'm pointing out the scary aspect of it, that it might be funny to them, but it is frightening. And that for me is the big challenge here, because later on we're going to be talking about, former CJ and Walter Onoge and what that really meant. We're going to also, maybe bring in the breaking down of judges' doors in 2015. There's many instances where we've seen the judiciary, just completely fall on its face. And so, where do you think that this leads us? And, is this just yet another glaring sign that the institution of the justice system in Nigeria has been completely beaten down?
Thank you very much. You see, what we have just witnessed with the trial of these minors is symptomatic. It is evidence of the rot in our justice system. It is what we get to what we have institutionalized now as part of our justice system. First, people no longer have respect for the rules, for the guidelines. First. Secondly, even when serious issues are being dealt with, it appears to the actors within the justice system like it is nothing but just play. So you have, for instance, cases that have been going on and people have been, in quotes, granted bail for a year. They cannot meet it, not because they do not have, shorties that can, for instance, stand for them, but because the court has imposed clearly unmeetable conditions. One will now wonder what then is the essence of our provisions relating to bail. You have a situation where people are arraigned and cases are not, charges are filed and they are not assigned for 2-3 weeks, and these are criminal matters. And under the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, criminal matters are supposed to be treated expeditiously. So now, when you now have a situation where people do not have confidence in that system, because from every point of the road, you are either being milked, you have to bribe somebody to get things done, or you have to eventually have to lobby somebody to get them to do their jobs, or people outrightly just refuse to do their jobs either because they don't like your name, or they don't like your face, or they just already consider that you are guilty of the offense charge, contrary to what the Constitution says. Then you have a problem that we all must be worried about. And at the end of the day, the buck falls on the same actors that I had mentioned earlier. The Police Service Commission must be very concerned about disciplining its officers. Secondly, because the police are the first point of call within the justice system. They are the first people to interact with persons either who have suffered losses or persons who are alleged to have committed offenses. And whichever way they treat these people will likely influence how the cases will go on eventually. So it's important that the Police Service Commission must stand up to its function. At the same time, the Judicial Service Commission must start taking a discipline of erring judges very seriously. Otherwise, we will have a situation where people will no longer approach the justice system, but will resort to self-help, simplicity.
Yeah, the justice system itself must understand, the independence, that it should have. In the face of, both, in any government that is in office in Nigeria, the justice system must understand that. And, it starts rather with, whoever is CJN, whoever is, the Chief Justice, whoever, is in those positions, understanding, the sanctity of that independence. And if they don't, then we're in trouble. Deja Jerry, thanks very much for joining us this morning. We look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you very much for having me.